All right. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining today's webinar on the 2022 Earth Observations for Sustainable Development Goal Awards program. My name is Chris Case, and I support the Earth Observations for Sustainable Development Goals initiative, and I'm also a member of the GEO SDG Awards program management team. As I mentioned, today's webinar will be recorded and posted online for viewing later, along with the slides for download. Meeting participants are automatically muted with the exception of our panelists, but we encourage you to submit questions via the chat function on your WebEx screen throughout the presentation. We will have time towards the end of the presentation for kind of an open question and answer, during which we can unmute you if you indicate you'd like to make a comment. And you can also use the raise hand feature using the WebEx. So if you have the option, it should say reactions. If you click that, you can either make a reaction like an applause or smile or things like that, but it also will give you the option to raise your hand, and that's how you can indicate you'd like to make a comment. With that, let's get started. So here's just a brief agenda. So today we're going to review some background on the group on Earth observations, the EO4 SDG initiative, and the awards program overall. We're going to discuss some eligibility criteria and the evaluation process for nominations. We're going to walk through the logistics of actually how to submit a nomination. We'll have an open discussion with our past winner organizations and evaluation panelists. And we're also going to review a list of the comprehensive resources to help you develop a compelling and winning nomination. As noted, we'll have an open Q&A at the end, but we encourage you to submit questions and comments via the chat box throughout the presentation. We'll do our best to try to answer them and monitor the chat throughout the presentation. So some background on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I think this audience is probably very familiar with this by now, but for those that are not, I will briefly go over this. So in September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly endorsed the Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a global development agenda for all countries and stakeholders to use as a blueprint for progress on economic, social, and environmental sustainability. There are 17 sustainable development goals, and there are associated targets and indicators for each one of those goals that really anchor the 2030 agenda, which specifically calls for new data acquisition and exploitation of a wide range of existing data sources to support the implementation of the agenda. And you can see these 17 goals listed on the side here. So to help advance the 2030 agenda and enable the societal benefits through the achievement of the SDGs, the Group on Earth Observations, or GEO, as I'll refer to it, began the EO4 SDG initiative, the Earth Observations for Sustainable Development Goals initiative, to help harness Earth observations and geospatial information to apply towards the SDGs. GEO is a partnership of more than 100 national governments and excess of 100 participating organizations that really envisions a future where decisions and actions for the benefit of humanity are made using Earth observations and geospatial information. And specifically, the EO4 SDG initiative helps to organize and realize the potential of Earth observations and geospatial information to advance specifically the 2030 agenda and enable societal benefits through the achievement of the SDGs. And onto the awards program. So launched in 2019, this is an annual award program presented to organizations that really make an impact on any one of the 17 SDGs put forth by the United Nations by using Earth observation and geospatial information. So this is our 4th year running, and we're looking forward to another successful year. So we'll walk through a little bit of eligibility. All GEO members and all organizations within a sectoral category listed here are eligible to nominate themselves or others for GEO SDG Awards. As I mentioned, on the right-hand side here, you can see specifically what kinds of organizations are eligible for the program. If you are unsure whether your country or organization is a member of GEO, we've included a link here. And you can also just do a simple Google search, and it should pop up right on the GEO website. So there will be sectoral and special category awards. So the sectoral ones are the ones listed here, and I'll go through the special categories in just a minute. Sectoral awards will focus on the type of organization that you are and the nature of their work. The special categories will recognize specific key tenets and objectives that the awards intended to highlight. When you submit a nomination, you're going to go ahead and self-identify what sectoral category you are in the form, and all nominees will automatically be considered for all special categories. So even if you submit one for a particular sectoral category, the evaluation panelists will, again, automatically include you for eligibility in the special categories if your project and efforts align with that particular special category. So one question we do get quite a bit and is posted on the website is kind of what is the required time frame for a project for this year's awards? When do activities need to have been taken place or been completed? So the answer to that question is project activities must have occurred within 18 months prior to the nomination deadline. So that means this year, 18 months prior to July 1st, 2022. Although the endeavor may commence prior to the 18-month mark. And if you have any specific questions about whether or not your project or activities meet that eligibility criteria, please reach out to us at awards@eo4sdg.org and we'll help answer that question. So moving a little bit into the evaluation process, the EO4SDG initiative team, in consultation with the Group on Earth Observation Secretariat Group, will identify a diverse set of representatives to serve on the evaluation panel. This will include subject matter experts, SDG specialists, Earth observations, and geospatial experts. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from a few of those panelists on what kind of made a compelling nomination last year and what they looked for, which will be helpful. And listed here, I'm going to briefly go over some of the criteria that will be used in the evaluation process for all sectoral categories. So merit, the quality, effectiveness, and soundness of the Earth observation-based endeavor. Relevance, does it align with the objectives of the SDGs and GEO's vision and strategic objectives? And does it support the use of Earth observation in countries or stakeholders' activities and processes to meet the SDGs and their associated targets and or SDG indicators? Innovation, how innovative is your project? Has it been done before? Is it creative and innovative in the use of Earth observations? Is it novel application of the Earth observations and geospatial information? That's kind of what we'll be looking for. Particular achievement, are the results clear and distinct? Do they have distinct accomplishments? And that means kind of, it's not necessarily just a work in progress or the beginning of an endeavor, but has your project really made a compelling result or distinct accomplishment or achievement? The impact of your project. What is the value and level of the positive social, economic, and or environmental benefits of your project? Again, going back to the achievement, did it make an impact? And the exemplariness. Is it a commendable example and a strong representation of the use of Earth observations to meet and achieve the SDGs? Is it noteworthy? Is it replicable for others? So these are kind of the criteria that will be used to evaluate the nominations for, again, just the sectoral awards. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the special categories. Again, so all projects, no matter what your sectoral category is, will be automatically considered for these special categories by the evaluation panelists. So the special categories include innovation, testimonial or story, statistical geospatial integration, and collaboration. So for innovation, what we mean is it an exceptional ingenuity and originality in the use of the Earth observations and geospatial information to drive progress on the SDGs and the associated targets and indicators? Specificity and clarity regarding the connection between Earth observations and SDGs and targets. Is it clear? Testimonial story. Do you have a compelling story, or is there a user testimonial that is particularly compelling? It could be an inspirational story or a concrete example that clearly and accurately describes the impact of your project and the use of the Earth observations on beneficiaries or partners, and is delivered in a manner that is authentic, creative, and original. Statistical geospatial integration. What is the soundness of the techniques that you use to apply Earth observations to achieve the SDGs and the associated targets and indicators? Are there specific aspects of data sharing efforts between institutions, partnerships through the interoperability of geospatial and statistical information, and the development of common tools and applications? And again, just to go back to a replicable project, can others follow your example in your project? And collaboration, what is the effective and impactful engagement you've been able to build with your project and partnerships? It could be among two or more sectoral categories. So for example, a civil society organization or a government partner. Have you built bridges and partnerships that others can follow? We want to really emphasize the need and desire to showcase that we want to build partnerships and bridges. We want to share ideas, resources, and expertise across these collaborations in using the Earth observation data, the methods, and the tools in support of the SDG indicators. And what's kind of the impact and potential for sustainability? Is your project going to be able to keep going? We think a lot of these projects should be self-sustaining with the appropriate resources, but we really want these projects to be lasting. Excuse me. We're going to talk a little bit about how the actual process of nominating goes. So on our website, you'll find all of this information, and we'll share the links via the chat and other ways. But on our website, it's a very simple process, and I'll show you what it kind of looks like in 1 minute. But on the website, you'll find a nominate tab. And what you're going to do is simply go to that tab. And there are a couple options. You can either download and complete the nominations form, which is either in a Word document form or a PDF form. It's a fillable PDF. You simply complete it, and there are indicators throughout the form of what information is required and what is optional. And you simply complete the form, and then you submit it to the awards at EO for SDG by the deadline there. A little bit about supplementary information. So we really want to see images and testimonials and videos and really demonstrate the impact. Have you shared your project and results on social media? Has the press covered it in press releases? Have you gotten publicity for it? What is the impact of the partnerships? And again, going back to the impact of the project. This year, this is different from last year, that the testimonials are actually required this year. So we really want to hear from users and beneficiaries of your particular project. What impact has your project made? How has it benefited them or the environment? What are the really demonstrating results of the project is what we want to hear. And all the supplemental information can simply be attached within the email to your completed PDF form. So it's really as simple as that. So I want to talk a little bit about recognition. So why participate in our program? We really want to help you get publicity for your project and recognize your achievements and to help you further your goals for your particular project. So all awardee organizations that are selected will receive a certificate of achievement, which is a really, really nice branded example that you can showcase on your website and other places, including badges for emails and press releases and things like that. Depending on whether or not the recognition event is in person, you may or may not receive an award or trophy. Again, that will depend on the particular award format ceremony. The last 2 years, due to COVID-19, has been a virtual ceremony, but the year prior to that was an in-person event. So we're hoping to have an in-person event this year at GEO Week in October, November 2022, but we'll see how that kind of pans out. Regardless, though, whether or not it's in person, there will be an award ceremony. Again, hopefully in person, but if not, we'll have a virtual ceremony. You'll be featured in the GEO website, which has a large footprint online and a large online following, along with the EO for SDG website. We're also going to do kind of a social media tour, so we'll work with you and any other your communications professionals to help advertise and promote your award. We want to get you all the publicity and recognition that you deserve. And this is a new one that we heard from past winners. They really wanted to connect with other winners to share best practices and obtain lessons learned and just kind of build their networks. So this year we're exploring the idea of kind of a GEO SDG Award winner alumni network that will be sustained and we'll continually reach out to throughout the year to kind of build those relationships. So more to come on that, but in a nutshell, that's really kind of all the recognition that we want to help provide you. So as I mentioned, this is just a screenshot of our website. The link is above there, and maybe one of my colleagues can put the link in the chat there so you can review it while we walk through it. It's very, very simple. So when you land on this page, the tabs that you'll see, the 6 tabs, And it's really designed to help you walk step by step through the process about what is the awards program about, which is really the kind of point of this webinar. Nominate, that's the tab where you will find the actual PDF or the Word document form and the instructions. The selection criteria that kind of walks through the sectoral and special categories. Key dates really kind of outlines the timeline and what things you need to be paying attention to. The evaluation panel will eventually be populated with the 2022 evaluation panel, but you can see the kinds of experts and SDG specialists that we've had in years past, and you can look through that. And then frequently asked questions, kind of the things that we normally get asked via our um, email address. And also on the FAQ is a number of resources that will be available to you. For example, we have kind of a supplementary information form for nominators to consider, and it kind of walks you through, okay, when you're filling out your nomination, we want you to be succinct and articulate in your explanations and things like that. It's really kind of a tools and resources and best practices for filling out the nomination form. All right, so enough of me talking. We'd like to hear from some of our past winners and past panelists and kind of have an open discussion about what are their past projects about? What was their process of going through the awards program like? And they may have some advice for nominators about what would make a compelling nomination. So I'm going to briefly introduce some of our past winners, and then on the next slide, I'll ask our panelists to kind of turn on their cameras and open their microphones so we can have an open roundtable discussion. So from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, we have Lorenzo De Simone. From Colombia's National Administrative Department of Statistics, or DANE, we have Sandra Liliana Morena Mayorga. From Costa Rica's Ministry of Environment, Energy, and Telecommunications, we have Rafael Monge. And from our past panelists in years past, we have from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and also EO for SDG co-chair Lawrence Friedel. And also from NASA, we have the EO for SDG Executive Director RG Cavada. All right, so can I please ask my panelists to turn on their cameras and join me? Morning.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Good to see you all. All right, maybe Lorenzo, could we start with you? Can maybe just provide a brief introduction of yourself and kind of your past project?
Thank you very much. So my name is Lorenzo De Simone. I'm Italian. I'm a geospatial technical advisor for FAO. My role within the Office of the Chief Statistician is to help build capacity in countries in the use of Earth observation for official statistics, including SDG indicators. As well, I'm responsible for the development of Earth observation-based methodologies that can support basically countries in having more granular, accurate, and up-to-date estimates. My experience with the process in 2021, so was focusing on the SDG indicator 15.4.2, which is the Mountain Green Cover Index. FAO's contribution was really that of facilitating the assessment of this tool, relying solely on geospatial data sets, which could be available at global level and as well as national level. And this resulted in greatly facilitating the work for many countries, for national statistics offices and concerned like ministries in coming up with the estimates with much less burden, let's say, on their workflows. I don't know if in your question about my experience, you also referred to my experience with the nomination process.
Yeah, so could you talk a little bit about, what was your experience in filling out the application? Did your organization have any best practices or things like that you found?
Sure. So we applied online. There was a form. It was quite straightforward, quite transparent, and quite to the point. I remember there was a section where we had to explain the methodology, what was the added value, how Earth observation data were supporting the process. Was it because they were providing directly variables, or was it because of disaggregation? So I think it was possible within the application form to actually explained quite well what was the role of Earth observation data, and also how this would turn into benefits for the reporting country. In my personal experience, I felt it was also a very transparent process. And also the award ceremony and the recognition of the work, I think it's also very useful for agencies, for instance, FAO, for the uptake and building trust in countries who are new to Earth observations, and they're looking at Earth observation as a potential, viable solution. So the GEO award is very functional for this as well, in my view. Thanks.
Thank you, Lorenzo. I'm glad to hear that the process was transparent. We hope to replicate that again this year. And I'm glad you talked about the methodology, but more about the results and impact. And I think that's kind of really what the evaluation panelists are looking at. We are interested in what kind of novel methodologies you apply, but what is the result? What is the tangible positive impact for organizations? And I'm really glad to hear about that's a good point, making, if our organization is recognized, maybe others will look to us as potential experts and collaborators in their efforts. So I think that's really, really great. Sandra, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your project?
Yes, hi to everybody. My name is Sandra Moreno. I am the technical director of the Geostatistical Division in DANE. DANE is the National Statistics Office in Colombia. And our project, the project was the use of air observation data, specific Landsat and Sentinel-2 imagery, to calculate the SDG indicator 11.3.1. This indicator is the ratio of land consumption rate to population growth rate. And in this process, we integrate statistical and geospatial information. As I mentioned before, we use satellite image to calculate the land consumption rate. And also we use population projections calculated from the 2018 population census to obtain the growth rate. This indicator was calculated for the period 2015 until 2020 in 63 cities in Colombia. And the results are now available in the website in DANE. And also this experience helped to improve our process and use the air observation data in other process in the statistical production. So this project also helps to reduce the gaps that we have, because we don't have information from all the indicators, and also we don't have a methodology or other sources of information. So thanks to this exploration of the use of air observation data, we can calculate this information and also explore other indicators and other projects to increase the integration between geospatial information and statistical information.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that overview of the project. Could you talk a little bit about kind of filling out the application and going through the nomination process? What kinds of things did your organization provide, or were there any particular areas that you felt your organization was able to excel in filling out the nomination form?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, in general, the experience was very satisfying and was very easy to nominate with this project. Was very easy to participate in the project, and also this process helped a lot to disseminate the results that we have in the project, and also to know the experiences of others. So it was a very important space to share the knowledge, share the experience, and disseminate our results, but also learn from others. So this was very good, very satisfying. And also, thanks to the award received and to dissemination that we have through social networks as such, Twitter and others, different kind of users and stakeholders know, have information about our project, and this helped a lot to disseminate the results that we obtained. So it was very satisfying experience, and definitely was very easy process.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we've definitely enjoyed engaging with Dane on social media and sharing your press releases that you've developed and kind of, sharing tweets and things like that and imagery of our projects. So very, very glad to hear. Um, Rafael, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you've actually supported 2 projects in the past.
Yes, thank you, Case. Hola a todos. I'm Rafael Monge. I'm an economist and I work in the Ministry of Environment and Energy of Costa Rica as director of the National Center of Geoenvironmental Information. This National Center of Geoenvironmental Information, or CENIGA, is a specialized unit in the ministry, like an intelligence unit that is there to provide assistance to the minister and advice and to other institutions on the management of the National Environmental Information System and support decision making on subjects related to sustainable development. We, as in the ministry, are involved in different processes related to generating and analyzing environmental information in partnership with other institutions, and that's a key idea that I want to share is these partnerships, because with partnerships we have managed to be awarded as the ministry as a GEO member in 2020 for the project mapping nature for people and planet. And in 2021, with another project, we're working with Stanford University. We also, well, Stanford was awarded with the academic award, but it was for a project where we are involved together with the Ministry of Environment, of course, and the Central Bank of Costa Rica. And that is aimed to value and measure ecosystem services using Earth observations. And well, for us, this experience has been very grateful, enrichment, and we also, and something that I really like from this is that both projects in the end have been able to work together in order to make the products from this ecosystem services modeling project inputs to the maps of nature that we have been developing with this other initiative with UNDP that aims to use different geospatial information inputs to produce one map to determine where to protect, manage, or restore the environment using nature-based solutions. So this is something very grateful for us to see how these projects can work together and increase the level of impact that they have, not just by doing things individually. And something that I really want to share, and this award has helped us a lot to being able to get out there to get the word out for other people to understand the work that we're doing, to use our data. That's the most important thing for us, to use the information that's being generated in order to analyze other new things, or for of course to make better decisions. And I wanted to share with this that in March we even got the chance to be in the front page of a major national newspaper in Costa Rica with this project on mapping on ecosystem services modeling. And this is something that the award has gave us the chance to get out there, and also being able to continue this promotion and to continue getting to other people with our information.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I wasn't aware of that. That's great. You'll have to send us a photo of that as well. Thank you, Rafael. I'd love to hear a little bit from one of our past panelists, my colleague RG. RG, would you mind just kind of walking us through, the kinds of individuals that are on the evaluation panel, kind of your background and expertise, and just kind of any lessons learned or best practices that you saw from the past evaluations?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks to our fantastic winners from 2021 and 2020. for their comments and continuing support of this program, and also contributions to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals through the use of geospatial information and Earth observations. So one of the things that I want to mention is that every year we do have a review panel that is formed and it's unique to that year and gets together to review nominations that we receive, use the criteria that Chris, you shared and are also listed on our website to evaluate these nominations. And then we have a series of interactions. So we conducted in the form of a review panel where we get together, we assess the individual evaluations and try to arrive to conclusions in terms of which projects merit recognition and are ones that we want to highlight and recognize with an award for that year. So the review panelists come from a range of sectors and bring forward expertise in sustainable development, in geospatial information and earth science, and also come from, as I mentioned, a range of sectors, including different government levels, so both national as well as subnational and municipal levels. We have engaged in the past with reviewers from academia, from the private sector, from nonprofits, and so we try to really have a wealth of knowledge and experiences and also geographic representation as part of the panel. And you can see on the website that I included, we do have you can read details on past or our past winners and their projects, but also on the review panelists. So we try to keep it transparent, and every year we announce the people that are on the review panel. And I do see also, at least one other colleague online, Laurent Durier from the GEO Secretariat, that had served from my recollection in our review panel from last year. And so just a little bit, and I'll try to be brief, I think our panelists have done an excellent job in sharing some of the things that we're looking at and focusing on in terms of nominations. And so I think that one of the things that I want to highlight is that we want to understand what is the connection of the project or activity that is being nominated with respect to advancing sustainable development goals. And so we are really looking for information that ties this activity to helping the organization or a particular stakeholder advance their efforts to manage specific SDG targets, calculate their progress through tracking and producing indicators, and overall trying to see these direct links to the sustainable development goals. So that's something that we've been placing a lot of emphasis on. And the second item that I want to mention is, as many of you have already discussed, the importance of the outcomes and impact. And so really looking for these testimonials, what we call, which are really experiences through whether it is direct quotes or sharing of experiences from people that have benefited from this particular activity that is being nominated. So we really want to get some information on how the work has really helped advance and help a country, an organization to make progress and advance this particular sustainable development goal, target, or indicator. And so the testimonials that we're looking for are, I mean, it's useful to also have information from partnering organizations, but we really want to also hear from the ones that have really benefited from the project. I'll stop there for now.
Thanks so much, RG. I'm actually going to go back to our winners. Speaking of the testimonials, while they were not required last year for the submission, can any one of our projects remember including any compelling testimonials from either users or beneficiaries? Can you remember any, compelling really quotes or things like that from your projects that have benefited users? It's a question to any of our panelists. Feel free to chime in.
Christophe, if I may, I can provide some feedback on this. So from our point of view, we used the novel Earth observation-based methodology to support the SDG reporting cycle for 2020. And essentially what FAO has done is tried to fill in gaps so that where countries could not provide those reportings, the figures, we could provide our own estimation using global data set. And what happened was that we received, let's say, a higher feedback in terms of endorsement of the figures that were estimated by FAO compared to the previous reporting cycle where we were not using an Earth observation-based methodology. So we had a positive impact on the reporting, let's say, rate to the SDG framework. Furthermore, the methodology was also adopted and I would say improved in the sense that national data sets were used, for instance, by Japan, who gave a very good example of how a country can use its own digital elevation model, its own land cover data, and benefit from a standardized methodology. And finally, it's not really a country user, but it's more of a UN initiative. As you know, UNGGIM has developed the SDG geospatial roadmap. So that context, the work of FAO has also contributed to support the development of the roadmap and to provide a concrete example on how countries can build their own reporting system using foundational geospatial layers, which are part of the SDG overall roadmap advocated by the UNGGIM. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenzo, very much. That's helpful.
Yes. Yes, and our project helped a lot for the SDG agenda because in our country, we have lack of information. For example, we don't have a cadastral information update. We have different issues. We have areas with difficult access. And because of that, the air observation data provide new sources of information to reduce these gaps. So this project was the beginning for us because we identified that the use of these new sources of information can help to produce new statistical information. And thanks to that, we also explore the use of the calculation of other indicators using geospatial information. For example, we have calculated the indicator 9.1, 11.1.1, 11.2.1, and others. And this was a good experience because we improve our capacity to use the air observation data and to processing this information to produce new sources of information. And also this is for SDG, but also we are exploring these sources of information in other sectors as agriculture information and others. And definitely it was a good experience, and this information helped to explore the potential of these sources of information from other projects and help to reduce the gaps that we have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sandra. Go ahead, Rafael.
Yes, I would like to jump in and talk a little bit about the experience from this particular project on modeling ecosystem services. The one that I showed that was in the newspaper. This had, and for that article, it was to introduce the results on how we were analyzing the relationship between nature and tourism using new data, like Earth observations, of course, and data from social networks, from people that take pictures and post them when they visit our country. And this was really interesting for us to use these new data sources to make this analysis of our country, because tourism is a very important industry in Costa Rica, and the results provided something that is maybe straightforward, but it's important to understand that the main drivers of our tourism are, of course, nature, but also infrastructure. And these two things combined can help us enhance or make the most of this industry for us. And this was very useful for not only for us in the Ministry of Environment, but also from the Ministry of Tourism and other government organizations that are in charge of planning and making decisions out of how we can better benefit our society. This was very useful for that. And well, and this is just one of the results that this project is going to show. This is the first one that has been showcased, but there are more other analyses on water and pollination that are coming up from this project that will be very interesting to show.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rafael. Maybe just kind of one final question for either RG or our other panelists. Does anyone have any advice for the 2022 nominators? What would really make a compelling nomination in your experience? What kinds of testimonials, or what would really think help further the project? And this is kind of an open question for anybody. Advice for 2022 nominators.
So I can go briefly, and I'd love to hear from others. And I also want to invite people that are joining us today to write their thoughts in the chat, or let us know, and we can unmute you and have you share your thoughts verbally as well. It'd be fantastic to have an interactive few remaining minutes. So I think that a lot we've heard already. In my opinion, it's extremely fantastic that this awards program highlights or helps highlight activities at these diverse levels of engagement and also application, right? And so we have here representatives that are working at the global level to ensure that geospatial information, including Earth observations, is integrated in methods to then help countries monitor progress and support or complement their national data and efforts with these, in some cases, global Earth observation data sets, and using some of these methodologies to help track progress on achieving an indicator or a target, and to also enable this comparability in terms of progress across from a country to another country, or if we're looking at a more localized level from city to city. And at the same time, we're highlighting a lot of efforts that are happening at the country level or at the subnational level, at the organization level, in terms of how organizations are using Earth observations, again, to inform and help better either develop more timely and more objective reporting on the Sustainable Development Goals framework that can also have applicability on other or in supporting efforts to develop more sustainable development plans and to inform practices or decisions, resource allocation. And so I think, again, successful nominations are ones that are complete in that they provide a kind of succinct description of what does the project aim to accomplish, how it has used Earth observations and other types of data and information to accomplish that endeavor, how it relates to the particular SDG target indicator, and what has been the impact. So how has that helped improve that organization's processes, activities, efforts to advance the Sustainable Development Goals? And I think we have a lot of examples, as I mentioned earlier, also on our website from our past winners, and you've heard some fantastic examples from today. So hopefully those provide also some additional information that you can look in terms of what are the types of projects that have been successful.
Thank you, RG. Any other advice for our 2022 nominators?
I will say that don't think much about it. Do it if you're thinking of nominating. It will be a good exercise to try to map all this information for your project and getting all other people to know what you're doing. That's very important. Our nomination has helped us also use this information for the nominations to report on other things, but we already had that gathered for this report. But it's important to don't just do things in your own or in your own institutions. It's a very good practice to tell people out there what are you doing, and in that way you can see who else is doing the same, how you can improve, and how you can also help improve other people projects or initiatives. And this award is a good opportunity for that.
Thanks very much, Rafael. Glad to hear.
And Chris, I do want to highlight that we have a comment in the chat from Laurent that highlights also the importance and emphasis that the Group on Earth Observations and EO4SDG has been giving in terms of looking at integrative, impactful, and democratized tools and information to help really understand and look at some of these nexus areas. For example, as we're looking at sustainable urbanization, we may also be thinking, or within that, there are links to looking at climate change impacts and both mitigation and adaptation. And so how can a particular tool or activity that an organization is doing helps perhaps tackle some of the issues around addressing access to green open spaces in cities, and how can that, for example, also help help us deal with some of the climate change related impacts, right? And so I think tools or projects that also highlight some of these approaches that really are integrating and cut across multiple areas are also very welcome and useful. Thank you.
Thanks very much, RG. Thanks, Laurent. All right, well, I have one more slide and then we can open it up for some general questions and answers. So just wanted to walk through some resources that are available to you as nominators. So of course, our website at eo4sdg.org, and then you can navigate to the awards program site where you'll see all those kind of specific 6 tabs. I mentioned that the FAQ tab, the frequently asked questions tab, is a lot of questions that we normally get, so we just tried to document them for everybody, and we can always add to that if we hear more from you. I also mentioned the suggestions for nominators form. It's a 2-page resource that just kind of walks through best practices of what to consider when actually completing the application. So you heard from Rafael and others to really try to be succinct in describing your methodologies and impacts and things like that. So that's a very, very robust resource. You can always reach out to us with any specific or general questions at awards@eo4sdg.org. And of course, we encourage you to follow us on Twitter and you can engage with us there. We're very active on Twitter and we can answer questions or things like that. You can direct message us or leave a comment on one of our posts. Encourage you also to follow the Group on Earth Observations. The Twitter handle is there. They will also be helping us promote this opportunity and some resources as well. So we'll be engaged over the next 6 weeks. So we would really, really love to engage with you. And just kind of a high level timeline of dates to be mindful of. So the nominations opened on Monday officially, and they will be open until July 1st, 2022. So you have about 5.5 weeks to submit a nomination and complete the forms. The evaluation process will take place probably July to August 2022 as well. And then we'll try to make notifications as early as we can to winners. We'll also reach out to any organization that did not receive or did not have a winning nomination, and we'll try to provide some kind of robust feedback for best practices for another iteration next year. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're hoping to have an award ceremony in person at GEO Week in November 2022. That will, of course, be dependent on COVID-19 and other factors, but regardless of whether or not it is in person, there will be an awards ceremony that you will all be invited to get some recognition. I have a comment here in the chat. Can you please repeat the timeline for project completion or deadlines? Sure. So it is project activities need to commence 18 months prior to the nomination deadline. So July 1st, 22, 18 months prior to that, project activities need to have started to begin. And RG, please help me
Yes, so
clarify if I didn't answer that question.
no, I think you answered it correctly. And you know, I think we're not going to probably, if it's not 18 months and it's 19 or 17, I don't think anybody's going to quite hold you accountable for that. But I think the intent is to make sure that you're not highlighting a project that was developed, for example, 5 or 10 years ago. It was not necessarily linked to the Sustainable Development Goals that did not even come into effect until 2015. And so I think we're looking for recent activities that have been already completed, or even if they are in progress, but at least have some demonstrable results and impact. So we are not looking for things that are purely aspirational and hope to have an impact and an outcome into the future, but we want things that we are looking for projects that have already delivered some results that you can speak about and talk about the impact of those results. And of course, again, there can be activities that are continuing, but again, not fully aspirational things.
Thanks, RG. All right,
And
with that, go ahead.
yeah, please, apologies very quickly. I wanted to mention, if you go back a slide for a moment, so you see the timeline that nominations are open until July 1st. We do want to encourage you to, if you're able to submit your nomination even before July 1st, that would be fantastic. I know sometimes we all tend to, or not all, but many of us may tend to wait until the latter part of a deadline to submit. But if you submit it earlier, that gives us an opportunity to glance at your nomination and many times reach back to you if we find it incomplete, to try and help you provide additional information that can make it more complete. If, of course, we receive this at the very end, we may not have the ability to do that. So here is, you know, encouraging you to, if possible, submit your nominations within this time frame, but as early as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, RG. So with that, any other questions that we can answer? Again, feel free to enter your question into the chat and we can repeat the question and try to answer it. If you'd like to make a comment to one of our panelists or any one of us, please feel free to raise your hand. You can use the reactions button and there should be an option to hit raise hand there.
Not seeing any, Chris. I do know that there were a couple of questions in the chat that we've responded to in writing. And definitely, I think one of the things we want to highlight is that this recording is going to be shared with all of you, and we will post it, as we mentioned at the beginning of the call, on our website, both EU4SDG and GEO websites. We will make sure it's shared also on social media to continue sharing awareness. And you can always reach out to us if you have additional questions via email.
Yep. Thanks, RG. So just a huge thank you to our panelists, Sandra, Rafael, Lorenzo, RG. Thank you so much for joining us today. Your sharing of the experiences and your projects was incredibly helpful and more than I was anticipating. So thank you very much. Here are just some key dates again. So nominations are open now. Nominations are closed July 1st, 2022. As RG just noted, please try to get your application in as soon as possible so we can help you fill out any missing information or obtain information that will make it more compelling. Here's our website with more resources, and please feel free to reach out to us via email at awards@eu4sdg.org, and please engage with us on Twitter. with that, I will close and thank you all for joining today. Have a wonderful evening or the rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Gracias. Chao.
Gracias, chao.
Bye-bye.